Let me start by thanking the members of the Chamber of Commerce for this invitation. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to deepen our collaboration and certainly our relationship with the Chamber as we work together for national development. And I say this with all sincerity, especially considering that the relationship between the Chamber of Commerce and the government, and I'll add here previous administrations, has not been the best. In fact, in many instances, the Chamber of Commerce has had acrimonious relationships with various administrations. I recall going back to the Lester Bird administration that the relationship was an extremely sour one, in which the then president used the Chamber of Commerce as a platform to promote his political agenda at the time. And I just want to say in passing, and this is not to stir up any controversy, but for us to understand that the Chamber of Commerce is a very important institution. It is important in terms of the role of its members in economic activity, as well as contributing towards the developed plans of the country. It means, therefore, that the Chamber of Commerce must be, I would say, apolitical in its articulations. And we do understand that people have their political biases. We understand that people have their political alignments. But when it comes to dispensing the work of the Chamber must be mindful that it is representative of a broad cross-section of Antiguans and Barbudans with different persuasions, including political persuasions. And it's from that standpoint that I'm asking for there to be a little sensitivity to the politics and the articulations, and to ensure that the Chamber does not descend into partisan politics, because there's no real value considering the important role that the Chamber has to play in nation building. I mean, I had an unfortunate situation, and again, I want to use this as an example, not to stir any controversy. And I am hoping that, having mentioned this, that it will help to strengthen the relationship between my administration and certainly the Chamber going forward. But I had what I thought was an unfortunate situation, in which I said publicly that the recent minimum wage, in which we increased the minimum wage to $9, was actually as a result of representation that was made by the Chamber. The Chamber was part of the minimum wage committee, and I would say that an expert piece of work was actually conducted. I believe it's Mr. Ephraim, the president, who would have done the work, literally regressing the figures, and would have advised the cabinet during the presentation that the rate of inflation over the period of time, having regressed the figures, would have been about 8.8%, and in order to restore the purchasing power parity, that we needed to be looking at increases in that range. And we understood too that if we increased the minimum wage too fast, too soon, that in itself could create a challenge for a number of businesses, especially small businesses. So we understand that the increase had to be incremental. So the Chamber, having done the research, suggested about $8.90. The union at the time was asking for 48%, using the false notion that prices had increased by 48%, even though all the data, including information coming from the statistical department, would have confirmed that it is nowhere close to 48%. So we adopted the recommendation of the Chamber, and I said so publicly, only to be rebutted by the member of the Chamber, a leader within the executive of the Chamber, to say that the Prime Minister lied. Now, apparently the person stood on a difference of 10 cents, in that the Chamber said $8.90 and I said $9. Now, the fact that we stood with the Chamber, recognizing that we had to control increases in salaries and wages, because naturally, if we increase it too fast, too soon, it'll be inflationary, and that you could have job losses if entities cannot sustain increase in salaries and wages. I thought we did a responsible thing, and that we were able to show the trade unions and other stakeholders that, we're standing with the Chamber. And I thought that that differential was unnecessary for the Chamber executive to take such a harsh position publicly. And I'm just flagging it so that there's no future occurrence of that type of behavior. I even went as far as stating that even though the formal notice of the increase was late, we had to make it retroactive, I said that we'd have given months of notice to Antiguans and Barbudans, to our business people, that we would have increased the minimum wage effective January 1st, 2023. That too was considered to be a lie. Now, you know, when you have responsible people making those public statements, it undermines the relationship between the government and the chamber. And I'm saying here that that type of behavior is counterproductive, and I'm stating it here in the presence of all the members so that you can hold the leadership of the chamber accountable. It's not just politicians alone should be held accountable. Even individuals in the private sector who have certain responsibilities, they should be held accountable too. And one of the vexing issues too, from time to time, I hear executive members of the chamber making certain allegations that, you know, we give superior concessions to foreigners compared to locals, when the concessions are enshrined in law. And if anyone of you believe otherwise, I challenge you to check the Investment Authority Act, in which those concessions are enshrined in law. However, the extent of the concessions are determined by the amount of the risk that the investor is undertaking. And by the way, those concessions, I believe, were initially agreed to by the UPP when they were in office. So if you're spending over 100 million EC dollars, you get up to 20 years tax-free concessions. And you can't compare that to someone who is spending maybe a few $1 million to suggest that they too should get 20 years tax-free concessions. And this is the type of misinformation that we have in the public that I think could undermine national development. And I think that in many instances that this type of articulation is fueled by the personal biases of individuals. And in some instances, they're just downright partisan. Now, I'm saying here that the role of this chamber is not to be partisan. Otherwise, you're going to undermine the relevance of the chamber. And if we're going to be honest too, the role and influence, or at least influence of the chamber over the years would have diminished. Chamber doesn't have the type of support and is not quite held in the esteem, the high esteem in which it was once held many years ago. And I believe that it's because of these type of partisan articulations that would have undermined the, I would say, integrity of the chamber to some extent. I haven't said that. I just want to get that off my chest. But having said that, I want to use this opportunity to recommit my administration to working closely with the chamber and certainly all business people in this country. We've just gotten a new mandate, and we recognize that we have to bring the entire society together. So notwithstanding our political persuasion, we all have a contribution to make to national development. We have established a very lofty vision of transforming this country's economy into one that will be a very vibrant economy to make Antigua and Barbuda an economic powerhouse within the Caribbean.